How's it going, everybody? Noah from Stage 3 Motorsports here, and today I wanted to bring you a quick review on this Corsa Sport exhaust system for the 2021 F-150. But before we get into the details, I want to note that this is a 3.5-liter twin-turbo EcoBoost V6 that we've got in this truck. So all the sound clips you're going to hear are from a V6 motor. They do have this kit available for the 5.0 trucks as well, and I imagine they sound great. We just didn't have one to try it out on. Let's jump in and give you guys a couple sound clips, and then we'll continue on with the review from there. So now that you folks have heard the sound a little bit, let's talk about it. And I will say, I think overall Corsa did a really good job dialing in the tone of this exhaust, especially for the EcoBoost V6, because it's a pretty rough sounding motor, and there's a lot of kits out there that do not sound good on the V6, and you can tell right away that it's just really raspy and annoying, and it isn't dialed in well. So Corsa did a good job of working around that and getting a bit of a deeper, throatier tone. And you notice it a lot, especially on like a cold start, and especially at low RPMs and even just kind of idling around. It does really have a pretty smooth, nice tone that feels a little more aggressive than what you'd expect from a V6. So they did a good job of refining that. Now, once you move up higher in the rev range and you're giving it a bit more throttle, you can tell that as it revs up, it does get a little bit buzzier, and it pretty quickly gives away the fact that it is a V6. And there's just not really a way around that. It's not necessarily anything that Corsa did wrong. It just comes with the territory of this type of motor. So I think for what you've got, if you're looking for a throatier, deeper sound out of this engine, this is going to be one of the better kits to consider. The other thing worth mentioning here is that with a motor like this, you do kind of have to lean into the fact that it's twin turbo. So if you want it to sound sportier, I think a kit like this paired with a nice cold air intake to increase the sound that you're getting under the hood and kind of the turbo noises that come through, or something like a blow-off valve, does pair really well here and gives the truck a sportier feel overall. So instead of trying to pretend and make it sound like a 5.0, you can kind of lean into the fact that, yeah, it's a little bit more of an import sound, but it does make the truck feel a little more alive, and it's certainly not dead silent like this truck is from factory. Moving on, let's talk about the daily drivability of one of these Corsa systems. And I'll say right off the bat, I think this is pretty family friendly for the most part. And it's a little loud on cold start. As I mentioned, it does have a rougher kind of rugged chop when you first fire it up. So depending on how your neighbors are, they may not love it starting up in the morning, but a lot of times that depends on your neighbors. Some people are fine if you fire up a straight piped LS. Other people think that a Tesla starting up is too loud. So depending on who's around you, you're going to get different opinions, but it's definitely not the most rowdy exhaust we've ever installed, and I think it's going to be pretty safe. And then certainly in terms of just driving this thing around, or once it's warmed up and you're not giving it a lot of throttle and not running high RPMs, it stays very quiet and very tame. There's definitely not a lot of drone, if not almost no drone whatsoever here. And you've noticed this quite a bit with aftermarket wheel and tire setup like we've got, especially because these tires are more of like a hybrid terrain where it's not quite a mud terrain, but it's still an all-terrain, basically just bigger lugs and a noisier tire. You actually hear these over the exhaust most of the time when you're driving around and you're not on the throttle. And these aren't a super loud tire, but it just goes to show that this thing can really shut itself up, and it makes a big difference when you're doing a lot of highway miles, or if you're hauling the family around, going back and forth to school or getting groceries, whatever it may be. This is going to be one of those things that this exhaust isn't going to ruin the experience for you and your family, and it's not going to annoy everybody around you. But when you do get on the on-ramp and you're, giving it a little bit of juice, you can definitely hear it come alive, and it does give you that feel that something's happening. The truck just doesn't silently accelerate. You do get that nice throatier sound. As a whole, I think this is a pretty safe bet if you're looking for a kit that is tame when you need it to be, but still offers a pretty nice sound once you get on the throttle. The last thing I want to touch on here is the install of this exhaust and then just the general build quality and fitment. This is a super crew cab truck that we've got with the short bed, which is a really common configuration, and I believe it's a 145-inch wheelbase, but Corsa does make these systems for other wheelbase options, so if you have a super cab or a long bed, you can find something that will work. And then obviously this is the pre-tire exit version of this system, but they do have other options if you wanted to exit in the factory location or do a dual exit out the back. So there's certainly some choices you can work with, but for our configuration with the pre-tire exit, I thought this thing installed really cleanly and we had no hassles getting this put on in the shop. Corsa uses 304 stainless steel for these systems and they box them really nicely. There's lots of packaging to help support everything, so as I pulled it out, there weren't any bent flanges or scratches and the tips were well protected. And then everything is there in terms of hardware and their instructions are pretty straightforward if you need them. So I didn't have any issues getting this put on and pieced together under our truck, and I think this is a system you could install in your driveway with hand tools and not have a whole lot of hassle with. Definitely something you could do on a Saturday without too much trouble. And for our install, as you're seeing the footage, we used an impact for some of it, but it really doesn't even require the use of power tools. And there's also not any cutting or weird modifications that have to happen. And that's usually the case for catback exhaust systems. But the reason I pointed out here is that typically when you change the exit location, like a pre-tire exit that we have on this truck, it gets a little bit dicey because you are putting hangers in areas where Ford didn't initially have hangers and the exhaust is being routed around components that it wouldn't normally be near. So the way Corsa engineered it, it doesn't come in contact with anything crucial under the truck, and the hanger locations work great. It's able to tie up to the frame and we haven't had it bounce loose or wiggle around, and we've had no issues of the tips, contacting the bed here or the underside of the body. So like I said, no complaints here. Corsa has a really high quality system with this setup, and I think you guys will be pleased with it. So that's just about all the info I have for you guys in this video. The last thing I'll say is in terms of pointing out cons or kind of comparing pros and cons, obviously there's a lot of nice things to say about the Corsa system, but it is a higher level system in terms of brand and quality. So the price is quite a bit more expensive than some of the other options on the market. This definitely isn't the most expensive kit you can buy, and depending on wheelbase and finish, it'll vary a little bit. But I find that for the higher level brands, Corsa sits kind of in the middle. So in most cases, you're gonna get pretty good bang for your buck. But if you are looking for the most affordable exhaust on the market, this is probably not gonna be in your wheelhouse. And the other thing that I mentioned earlier is that it's still gonna have a V6 sound, and that's not necessarily a knock on Corsa, but no matter what, you are gonna be able to tell that this truck is a little raspier, and the EcoBoost motor just kind of has that feel to it. If you're trying to get away from that, you may end up just wanting to stick with a quiet or stock system overall. So those are all things to consider. But with that being said, if you guys are interested in checking out some of Corsa's options, we'll have links down below in the description that are gonna shoot you over to our website, and you can see all of these kits and the different configurations. So definitely give that a look and leave us a like if you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe as well, it helps us out. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.